Okay, everyone, it's time for us to begin our class. We're continuing our summer series here at the Bellaire Church of Christ, and we are very excited about having Randy Tumlinson back with us here. He was here with us last year. I enjoyed very much his Bible class and his teaching at that time. Let me tell you a little bit about Randy right quick, just in introduction. Randy lives in Tomball, and he preaches and teaches young gospel preachers at the Kleinwood Church. Daniel went through his classes, and I kind of wonder whether or not he'd be willing to teach some old preachers. You know, maybe I could go through his class too. I'm sure I'd benefit. Anyway, Randy spent 38 years at the Klein ISD, teaching high school students in Klein. He's now at the Rose Hill Christian School or Academy. I don't know what it goes by, school or academy. But anyway, he's been there for 10 years. So according to Daniel, and I can confirm this, Randy Tumlinson is a teaching legend. And so I think you're really going to enjoy this as he discusses the topic of Naaman for us tonight. So without further ado, I'll turn the class over to Randy.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for having me. I'm grateful for the opportunity. I do want you to know that Daniel, in his invitation, encouraged an interactive approach. And so I'm going to try to live up to that. I'm traveling light. I didn't bring any slides. I don't have any notes. Got my Bible. And I'm open to 2 Kings chapter 5. I hope you'll join me there. Of course, that's the chapter that contains the story of Naaman. And it's my interest for us to work on that together. Let me give you, in fact, I've got a picture in my mind, what I'm hoping we can do. I'm hoping we can practice our own version of crowd surfing. You're the crowd, I'm the surfer. If that doesn't create scary images in your mind, I don't know what will. But I'm going to rely on you. And I want to show you, as we think about that, I want to point out to you what I think is happening in our minds. I want us to be aware of that because I believe the movement is really important for us to be aware of it, to kind of work on. For one of the parts of this exercise, I want us to know I want us to rehearse. You know this story. You're not your first rodeo, not your first time with Naaman. So I want us to think about the details of the story. You cannot get too many details. We want every one of them. But we don't live with details only. We also want to think about ideas. And so what our minds are doing is really moving back and forth between kind of big ideas and the most specific, the most particular details. And I wanted to work on both of those. I wanted so if when you hear a colleague here, a brother or sister offer a detail, your mind might go to an idea associated with that. In fact, let's just see what happens when we think about it that way. I do want to keep in mind also, though, that by the time we get through, I'd like to have a list of 2 or 3 items that we can take with us on the road. Some combination of ideas and details that say, I can think about this later that will help me. So, here it is. You know Naaman. You can refresh yourself by looking at 2 Kings 5 right now. And we can start at the beginning, we start at the end, it doesn't matter. We're just going to try to, and you can start with details, you can start with ideas. But I want to see what you've got for me. Speak it up, I will repeat it. There may be some microphone moving around, but go ahead and speak it up and I'll be glad to repeat it. Anybody? Come on, when you hear Naaman, what comes to mind? Who will it be? First one for me. Baptism. Say it again.
Baptism.
Baptism. How do we see baptism in the story of Naaman?
Immersion in water for cleansing.
Notice the word baptism doesn't appear, does it, in the text? But you've labeled it, so See what he did? He went up here. He wanted to give us an idea. Well, we got the detail is about going under the water, right? Yes, thank you for that. Who would like to elaborate about that going under the water? What are some more details given about that? And then we can think more about this language of baptism as well. Thank you for that. Yes.
Obedience.
Going down in the water.
Required obedience.
Yes, you said carried the idea, and then you said required. Thank you for both of those. Obedience. So yes, in fact, that's really a big part of the problem from Naaman, isn't it? Right? What's Naaman's problem? Pride is the problem. Now, whoa, we're up at big ideas now. Pride, right? Because, well, how could pride be involved in going under the water?
Dirty water.
Dirty water. How do we know it's dirty water? What does he say about the water? My rivers are better than you. I want you to know, I remember Donnie Robbins, 55 years ago. We were hauling hay, and we were miserable. But Donnie got mad at us for some reason, and when we offered him some water, water, I'll drink water when I get home. That had a Naaman sound about it, right? You talking about dipping water, over here talking about dipping, I could go home and dip. I could get baptized there. I could get in the water back there. Or not, what is it? Arbana and Farpar are cleaner, better rivers, better dipping. So he gets to this. That's really a guy thing to do. And you don't have to confess, but I'll ask any wife that wants to come up afterwards and tell me, I'll believe you. The temptation is there. It is pretty strong. Now, let's go back and build. We've got this big idea of Naaman being proud. What else do we know from the story? Again, because now I'm asking you to go down to some details. What else from the story lets us have a clue that this guy does have a sense of pride about himself? Yes. He's the king's commander-in-chief. That's in the opening verses. I want to stretch that out because we are given an elaborated list. What else is said right there at the beginning of the chapter that tells us this guy is somebody? He's got some reason to be proud. He is the commander-in-chief of the king. What else is said? Great and honorable man in the eyes of the master. We're going to keep adding on more. Is a valiant warrior, man of valor. Yes. What is there another? Highly, it's just kind of piling on. Some of this may be translation differences, but there's just this extended list. We're not talking about just anybody. We're talking about somebody. Right? And then we get the but, right? And what do we know? Good readers. What I teach my students in every grade, good readers watch for the but. What happens this time when we get the but? But he's a leper. Now, don't you think, this is what's puzzling to me. Don't you think it's reasonable to imagine, at least, that being a leper would somehow dampen your pride? Right? Seems like that would take it away. Now, it maybe our ideas about leprosy may be a little bit skewed. One, he's not, since he's a Syrian, he's not subject to the purity rule requirements. But it may be that also leprosy covers a range of diseases and not just one. And so it's possible that he has leprosy and it's not as debilitating as some others forms might be. I don't know the reason. I don't know the right way to think about that. But we do have this very sharp contrast. All these good things, but he's a leper. Yes. And then, what's the next part of the story that happens after we learn he's a leper? It's a nice little story. In fact, I want to tell you a story about that story once you get me going with it. A story that connects to Daniel's own background. Yes?
Servant tells him, turn around.
This guy gives interesting answers here. Turn around. What do you mean by that?
No, he's heading back. He knows a better way. He knows he.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm with you now. We're talking about a different servant. This is a 3-servant chapter. And you're talking about the middle servant. Right? And you're right to think about that because this guy's still back at the baptism. Right? And with a reason. Right? Because that's a big deal. You go, oh, gets mad, storms away. I can wash back there. And then while he's gone, or as he's turned away, a servant comes. Yes. And I'd like you to look at the language used by the servant. Let's think about that, because I think we have 3 servant stories. 2 of them are wonderfully favorable, and the third one is, of course, a tragic one. But let's look at we're at the second servant now. After Naaman has turned away, now the servant says something that try to get him to turn back and go. Say it again for me.
If he would have asked you to do something great.
If he would have asked you to do something great, you would have done it. But did he really say? Did he really say this? And what is the this? Wash and be cleansed. All right? Is that all he said? Did he really say just that? And here you are upset? Why not just do it? Pride gets in the way. That's certainly there. We've got to see it. He storms away in his... Yes. All right, we're still building on pride. Yes, Brian?
Well, the command to wash wasn't directly said
I'm about ready to, I need a research assistant. And I am actually absolutely sincere. I don't remember where the passage is. So I'm going to tell you about it. I want somebody to find it for me. Somebody will. You remember the occasion when John the Baptist sends some of his disciples to come to Jesus and ask, are you the one? Or should we wait for another, look for another? Right? You remember that? That's when he's in prison. He can't come himself. He sends his, and then of course Jesus tells him, he doesn't give an answer directly. He says, go tell John what you see. Right? And there's a connection made to Isaiah 61. But I want you to think about the language that Jesus says right after that. And I want to build that in. So somebody, that's just kind of set that off to the side. I'm sure there's some initiative. Somebody will tackle it quickly for me. I know you will. Matthew 11. Man, that's what I wanted. And I was not pretending. I could not remember where it was. I was just going to go by memory. But thank you for Matthew 11. You track that down. And let's go back and say, we've got this mention that the prophet did not even come. Who will fill out that part of the story a little bit more for us? Again, you're doing a wonderful job. You remember these stories. We're just pulling things out that you know. And somebody else will remember something you didn't. So together we're pooling our knowledge and assembling this story once again. What will you talk to me about what's happening as Naaman gets mad in his pride and turns away? I think the text, my version, English Standard Version here says, he turned away in a rage, right? Why? What does he say? Look at the text once again. Hope you appreciate this attention to detail here. I want to know what the text says. I thought. All right, now, we're going to build on that, but I appreciate Brother Garrett stopping with just that. I thought, right? That's the ultimate expression of pride. I wanted it done my way. I expected it to be done my way. I came with something in my head. Now, I want you to know, I'm sure this is not limited to gender, but I think once again, men are pretty good at this, right? Especially if you see yourself as kind of a patriarchal figure. I'm somebody. I may not be a general, but I'm somebody. And so I thought, I think. And what did he think? Come on now, count the verbs for me. You got to count the verbs. Count them. 5 verbs. Come, stand, call, wave, cure. This was going to be a performance. And of course, who is the he that thought, or that he thought would come? Elisha, the prophet of Israel. Right? In fact, it's almost a contest of who is somebody, right? Because when Elisha first hears about it, hears about the king tearing his clothes, he says, well, send him to me. I'll talk to him. I will receive him some way. He doesn't say how. But I want him to know, that there is a prophet in Israel. Of course, he's presenting himself as God's man. But then now, we're not told a name, I don't believe, in the text, are we? Okay. Now you got the third servant part is there. It is Gehazi. Check for me. Does it say the name, or does it say a servant came? A messenger came. A messenger came, and what did he say? How many verbs? Come on. Go and watch. So there it is. See, it's the battle of the verbs. And I really do. I don't think there's any accident. I think the number matters. Now, it also matters who says them, right? The guy didn't even come. Here I am, somebody. I thought at least the prophet would come out and talk to me face to face. But no, he sends a messenger. What a delicious detail. Why is it important, do you think? Who would like to speculate? Oh, we don't want to do too much of that, but why do you think it's important that it be a messenger? All right, it is not addressing him in his pride, but challenging those expectations, coming with an emphasis on humility. It's not about you. It's not about me, the prophet. It's about the words of God. Okay? All right, thank you for that. So that's your homework assignment. I want you to remember tomorrow. See if you can remember the 5 verbs to 2. All right, because one of them is the list of 5. That's 5 verbs of pride, and here are 2 verbs of humility. Will you do it? We have that early word about obedience. That's the real test. Will you obey? Now, all right, I'm going back. We've got this language, Matthew 11. I want to hear the language that Jesus says when he closes off his reference to. I'm trying to show you how I was helped to understand the New Testament passage by thinking about the Old Testament passage. They're related. So find in Matthew 11, we're told the story where disciples come to Jesus from John the Baptist. So at the end of that little episode, in your red letter version, if you have that, you'll see the language where Jesus makes some comments. I want to hear the final comment. Who will? It's the beatitude. What is the beatitude offered in that passage? We know it's a beatitude because we got the blessed. Is he? Well, go ahead.
Blessed is he who is not offended.
Do you understand? I'm just going to let that sit there a minute. Because now we're in serious thinking mode. Because we got language from the text in the Old Testament, quite a few details, and now we have this language from the New Testament, and I'm asking you to bridge between the two in your thinking, in your mind. So I would like for you, it helped me, I want you to know, it helped me to understand that what Jesus meant, because I've been confused about that one for a long time. Blessed is he who's not offended by me. How can we use the Naaman story to help us think about that reference by Jesus? Anybody feeling bold tonight? I'm watching any movement buys a cow in this auction, so there we go, yes. All right, it's not the message, but the messenger. Okay, so here we have these two things, the messenger and the message. And for Naaman, they need to be joined together, right? Because the message doesn't have the weight, doesn't have the heft that he expects. 5 verbs is pretty impressive, but I only got 2. See, so, and then who have said the 2? Maybe if the prophet himself had come and said the 2 verbs, it might have made a difference. So that it could be that separation between the messenger. And so here's what I want you to think about. And this is what I think you might want to take with you. Why is John the Baptist asking this question? He's the one who said earlier, remember John 1:29? Behold, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. In John chapter 1, John knows. But now he's asking questions. Maybe because he's in prison. And Isaiah 61 talks about people getting out of prison. So it's a really, and I do appreciate this thinking here of the messenger and the message has to be mixed together. I don't know, I'm going to give you an example. This is just the littlest thing, but the analogy came to mind. I think I remember reading stories to children when they're about 2 years old, up to maybe 3 years old. And as you read this, there's a pretty small set that you recycle through at night, right? Some of you maybe are doing that right now, you understand. But what you understand about it, I think, is that they are very much attentive to you reading it rightly. You don't get to cut it short because you're tired. You don't get to cut it short because you think they're asleep. No, they're still listening. So you've got to get it all right. And you've got to go back and say it because it matters how you do it. What do you think about this? You understand the problems people had with Jesus partly came, they had expectations. This is what the Messiah is like. And remember the people in Nazareth, Luke chapter 4, when he shows up and reads from the book Isaiah. What does he say? What happens then? The people, they're kind of glad to hear from him. But then when he starts talking about it, I'm the one, they're ready to throw him off a cliff. Who's this guy to be the Messiah? So you see, the problem comes when you can't let Jesus, be the Messiah he intends to be. He has to, like Naaman, we want to make Jesus fit our model in our head. I thought in my head when I came up in my pride. How does he show his pride coming to the prophet? Go back, another detail. We're digging details again. Come on, 2 things we're told. He came with a letter to the king. He said, I'm operating at the highest level, king to king. And then, of course, the king of Syria or king of Israel gets upset and weird things happen. But then he goes on. He goes to see the prophet and he comes, 2 things. With his chariots and horses and chariots. Again, and that's describing the kind of car. He's a big car, right? He didn't come in an electric vehicle. He's somebody, right? And so he wants, now please, I hope I didn't offend any electric car driver. I gladly apologize, but I just want you to think, you understand what I'm thinking about. Okay, so I appreciate you getting noticed it. I think you took to this story like you do a watermelon. You ate the middle of it first. All right. So we got some at the beginning, and then there's another part, and then we did have mention of Gehazi. So now let's go, we've got that middle part out, and we got the servants there doing a good work, a humble work. They call the proud man back. Did he really say that? Is that all? Can't you do that? Right? So that's the servant in his humility, able to see rightly and act rightly better than the proud man. That's something to take with us. We'll rehearse that at the end. But let's go now to Gehazi, the last of the servant episodes in this, a 3-servant chapter. And then we've got to go back and pick up the first one. So if there's somebody that liked the idea, you can go back to the first one and work on that one if you want for a minute, and we'll get to that. But what's the point of the Gehazi episode inside this chapter? Who wants to rehearse it for us? There's one to tell you could help me with. He refuses gifts. We get, it's important that he begins his way back and the Gehazi follows him and asks for a gift. That's right. And how does Naaman respond? Well, what does he ask for first? One talent and clothes, 2 clothes. And what does Naaman say? I'll give you 2 talents. So Naaman is very receptive. And so the guy takes it, and what does he do with it? That's right. He hides it. And then he goes to pretend. Now this is not very, there's at least a slight connection. What New Testament story comes to mind when you read this, maybe? The tales aren't very similar, but there's at least this business of hiding something from God's man. Anybody? I may be stretching here. It's not a very... Oh, taking the forbidden thing that outside of Jericho, and they buried it in this. All right, okay. They took something they weren't supposed to have. That's a connection. That's not what I was thinking about, but that's a reasonable one. That is somebody that knows what's the right thing to do, but consciously chooses not to do it. Yes, an Old Testament one, but a New Testament. All right. Somebody buried the talent. Okay, I'm just fishing. You're trying. You don't have to guess what's in my mind. In fact, it's kind of a scary place to be at times. Oh, are you thinking about the seed counting, and is that what the spices? Okay. No, that's all right.
Widows not being taken care of.
Yes.
Then
all right, early in the church, okay.
early,
In Jerusalem, okay.
And then also I think about Jewish followers measuring out their spices and all, but yet not making sure they gave and tithed the proper amount, but not taking care of the responsibility.
Okay, that is, I think you're thinking about Matthew 23, right? Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, you tithe mint and as in cumin, and neglect the weightier matters of the law. I've heard Daniel talk wonderfully about that. Yes, thank you. Again, you're making connections, and I think that's what we should be doing. Reaching is all we can to make connections, not trying to force too much of a connection, it just doesn't work, but they're there. They're little bits that we can think about. Yes, you. Wow, man, this guy makes good connections. There's not a one right answer. There's lots of answers, And I appreciate that there is an ongoing tug there. Notice that's a kind of answer up here at an idea level. And here we had the seed counting. And think about this. Think about Ananias and Sapphira, who hide part of the proceeds of the sale of land. Remember, that's in the same neighborhood there early, Acts chapter 5, isn't it? And that right in the same neighborhood. Okay. Now, I want to go back. I want to show you a place in the Gehazi episode. There are two things. Why? One's a question I need your help with. And the other one, I just want to tell you something I discovered that I hadn't thought about before. First one is the help. Why do you think Naaman asked for dirt to take back with him? Why take back? Why does he want to take back dirt? See if you can find that in the after the prophet has refused the gift, he says, well, at least you can give me some dirt to take back. Why? Let you think about that. If you don't want to answer it, that's all right. Just okay. May give exhausted bids in the auction. I'll tell you about another part that interests me. I'm still here in chapter 5. I'm going near the end. I want you to see, I know this may sound weird, but I'm still emphasizing our verb counting, or pardon me, this is not a verb list. It is a list, though. What does Gehazi take? Yes, precious metal and clothing. So I'm reading here in verse 26. But he said to him, he being the prophet Elisha, to Gehazi, did not my heart go when the man turned from his chariot to meet you? It's almost like you say, my heart broke. You didn't hide it from me. I knew what was happening. And my heart broke. Did not my heart go when the man turned from his chariot to meet you? Notice it doesn't even call him Naaman, just the man. Was it a time to accept money and garments? Now that's there, right? We expect him to say that because that's exactly what he accepted. But look what he does. He doesn't stop. He piles it on. It's like me filling a plate at a buffet. There's some serious piling going on. Look at this. Look at this. Was it a time to accept money and garments, olive orchards and vineyards, sheep and oxen, male servants and female servants? 6 more items. 3 pairs are added to go with the first pair. Why does the prophet pile on other things that could have been? They weren't. They're not part of the story, as we're told. What's the reason? So here's 2 questions. Why the list of stuff, and then why the dirt? And I'll wait on you for a while. If you don't want to talk about it, we'll let him go. That's all right. We still have to go back to the first part. Get the first servant episode a little more fully developed. Right? Can't get a bid on that one. Let's go back to the beginning. I'm asking you and you're not helping me. I don't mean to put the burden on you alone. It's or all. Trust. There ought to be somebody. Well, I've encouraged you all to make connections. Here you're going. I thank you for that. So there is something about, well, let's see, where is this dirt coming from? It's pushing it a little bit to say, remember in Exodus, burning bush, what does Moses have to do? Take his sandals off because the ground is holy. And this is the land given, this is the land of God's people. So it may be too much to say these particular bags are themselves holy ground, but it is dirt from the promised land, dirt from the land of Israel, dirt from the land of the God who could heal Naaman. And so when he goes back, let me give you another example. It's a weird one. I believe at least one of my daughters, when she left Texas to go off to some strange place to school, she took a jar of Texas dirt with her and put it under her bed, right? And that's about as holy ground as you can get, isn't it? So, but I'm guessing, I wonder if that's not some of what's going on. That in effect, this guy who has maybe not a perfectly developed religious sense yet wants a place. In effect, it's kind of an oddity. Rather than creating a shrine to a false god, this is a place where I can worship the God of Israel. I'm bringing part of Israel with me. That's the best I can do. I'm glad to hear somebody offer a qualification or challenge to that, but that's what makes sense. Okay. And the list? Okay. Well, maybe we'll come back to it. Let's go back to the first servant. What do we know about the first servant? A little girl who's captured, so she's a slave and working as a servant to Naaman's wife. All right? And by the way, this is the part that I first heard about. I don't know if any of you remember, you all were around at old church building, but there used to be a meeting place where the Cy-Fair Church of Christ met right on the feeder road of 290. I don't know if anybody remembers that. Well, what's that? Oh, okay. I heard Sewell Hall preach about that subject 45 years ago. And I was so impressed by that, because he didn't preach about Naaman. He preached about that little girl, as only Sewell Hall can do. And so when it was over, the next day or so, I wrote him a letter. Paper, envelope, stamp, all of that. And I sent him a letter asking if I could have an outline. Of course, in his genial and generous way, he sent a very encouraging note and sent me his outline. I preached it sometime or another. So he got a lot out of this first servant story. In fact, I would like for this to be something that, again, we take on the road. Surely we need to think about pride somehow. And one of the ways that pride expresses itself is the model that we carry in our head. It has to be done my way. We need to take that with us, I think. But what can we take with us from this little servant girl? And yes, and so what could she do to help somebody? What did she do? Thank you for your word choice. She referenced the prophet. She said, "Oh, that my master was in Israel or met the prophet from Israel, he could help cure him." Yeah, so she does. She can't do much, but she did what she could. And look at this. The way we're supposed to see this, it's a very clear chain. One part's implied, but it's there. She speaks to Naaman's wife. Naaman's wife speaks to Naaman. Naaman speaks to the king of Syria. King of Syria communicates with the king of Israel. And then ultimately the prophet of God is involved, all because of the words of a little girl. Right? So, and in fact, not a little slave girl, a little foreign slave girl. That's an astonishing set of limitations, and yet, she did what she could. And so I can't help but think that we, in our plenitude, I'm sure none of us who could rival, well, maybe some of you do rival Naaman in your status as somebody, but all of us can have our little moment, and we can say, "Oh, that my master." We can say something about what we know, and who knows where it will end up. She did not know. She only spoke what she knew, and then from there, these ripples continued, and the benefits came. Thank you for that. All right. I don't remember hearing a closing time. Oh, well, that's about right. First, I do want you to understand. I hope you see that you've done the thinking tonight. And I hope this is what Daniel had in mind. One reason I could do this, one reason I could crowd surf, picture it now, go ahead. One reason I could do that is because I could assume that the group here is well grounded. You know more than I do about Old Testament stories. And when you may not remember all of them, but you know some, and others pitch in and together. Come on, it's just like some of the greatest eating we ever do. When we have those potluck suppers, everybody brings something. And even if there are 7 green bean casseroles, it's still wonderful because everybody's pitching in, right? And that's just what we've done here. We pitched in together. What I'd like to do is to take a minute and try to rehearse. We're going to be quiet for just 37 seconds. I'd like to see if we could rehearse 3 different things that you could say, based on the details and ideas that we've talked about here, moving back and forth. What 3 things you could take on the road, take with you and contemplate tonight, tomorrow, and perhaps act on. That's, not trying to rush you, but take a minute, see if you can summon or kind of conjure up your own list here of remembrances. Does it have to be the same as somebody else's? Surely we could get more than 3, and your 3 may be your own, but my guess is there'll be some overlap. Any takers, you don't have to give all 3, just give us 1. If you're taking this on the road with you, so you could help you be a better partner in covenant with the Lord Jesus, what's something you could take from here? And you might even word it kind of as a lesson or as a imperative, a command.
I'll start with this. God's word is truth. Accept it for what he says and don't change it in some particular way, a rationalization, as is done so often.
All right, thank you for that. Accept God's word as truth, don't change it. And take us back to our one of our earliest words, that word obedience. Are you willing to accept his word enough to do what it says? Are you willing to obey? Are you willing? Yes. All right, thank you for that. Someone else? Yes. All right, I can't put God into a box. I quote. Thank you for that. Yes, and so we nicely worded in the first person. I need to be, the temptation may be there. I want God to be my way. I'm going to put him in my box. But I can't do that. That's why I appreciate that, the way you worded that. I have to let him be who he is. Thank you for that. Someone else, please. Yes, please.
Been blessed to be through the story sometimes. This time, really striking me is a little girl. And her mindset, her beliefs, her faith, her strength, and adversity, and encouragement were definitely something for me to work on. And not realizing I may not see the result, and also I can't doubt how far it will travel.
That's not my business, right? She did what she could. Thank you. Thank you for that. That's another one that Sewell Hall wanted to preach about 45 years ago. Yes, thank you. Someone else? We've got 3. We've reached our minimum, but my guess is we could find 1 or 2 more, and I'm certainly grateful. Yes, please. Thank you. How interesting to take the dirt reference that way. Healing is not in the dirt, and it's not in the water. It's in the obedience. It's in the God who gives the instructions. All right. Thank you for that. And there again, the temptations to look for our measure of what God can do and will do, when we need to understand his word is truth, and we need to be willing to obey it, and not misdirect ourselves to this. Don't try to wash in Urbana and Farpar, right? Thank you. We've got 4. Is there another? Don't let pride. Okay. Okay, that was the second part I wasn't quite sure about. Don't let pride in the family you're born into get in the way. Don't. That's Naaman and his status and who he is. Don't let that get in the way of you responding to God in the language of humility has come up. Let's close in prayer. Holy God, thank you. Thank you that you want to have a people and that you want to be the God of your people. Help us to understand what it means to be your people, people who are willing to be humble and obedient and willing to trust in you. And help us to remember that. Help us to subdue our pride. Help us to not put you in a box. Help us to do what we can and trust you to do your will. We thank you. We desire your will. Thank you for our time together. And we pray in the name of Jesus. Amen.